Page 72, the ballad. I think we've had a ballad already, haven't we? Ballad is just a musical story. Some ballads have words, some ballads don't. This ballad has words. I think the previous one we had didn't have words, so you had to make up your own story. Now they're telling you a story. There's a few things in here that are kind of tricky. I'd like to point them out to you. I'm going to start with the right hand. On page 72, it's the third line down. The first measure in the right hand, you have a G sharp, a B. In the next measure, the B is tied. You don't play it again, hold it down. But now you're going to play a G natural by itself. But you're holding both notes down. And then a rest, and then you can go. And then in the third measure, we have those two little lines, and they have the word pause above it. Well, that's called a caesura. We also call them railroad tracks. It simply means just stop for a moment. Just hold the action, stop the world, I want to get off type thing. Just for a moment, and then continue. When I play with a metronome, I have to time my moments to the metronome, so I simply, one beat. I stop. Complete silence, I do nothing for one beat, and then continue. So it's like that measure, I'll have 5 beats in it. So that measure would be like 1, pause. It's handy because you got to move your hand, and you can do that during the pause because you're playing the F sharp with the second finger, and then you're going to use the 5th finger on the E so you can move down during the pause. Comes in handy. Last measure of the third line, they're saying 1, 2, 4 on the chord. I suggest you do 1, 2, 3. Just easier to reach it because before that, the measure before, after the pause, you have these. Then you have to move right quick, and there's no time to do it. You just got to move it. So 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, I'm sorry. Practice that, going from here to here. Know where you are and what finger it is. Know where you want to go and what finger or fingers are involved. I have to look down at the keyboard for that one, obviously. But, and the reason I'm suggesting 3 is because in the next measure, or the first measure of the bottom line, look at this carefully. The D is tied, right at the top note, it's tied. But then you're going to let go of the B and the A and play a C with your thumb. So now you've got the C and the D down. But I want to go on here. And I can go on easier if I have 3rd finger on the D, not 4th. But here, I gotta go up to here. Here, I can almost reach it. So to me, that's easier. So to say all that mess again, the last measure of the third line on page 72, I suggest 1, 2, 3. So that when you get to the next measure, it's a thumb on the C, hold the D down, and then you go up with 4 on the G. You could use 5 on that G. You're here. You could use the 5 on the G if you wanted to. Just put the 3rd finger on the F sharp because you need the 5 for the A. And then 1 and 3 again. And then the whole mess again. Thumb on the C. Here in the last measure, page 72, you can do 1, 2, 3 if you want, since that's what you've been doing down here. Or 1, 2, 4 here, it doesn't matter. Because when you go on to measure, the next measure at the top of 73, you have a quarter rest and you got to move your hand up. So it doesn't matter. Now on that first measure on page 73, it's a 2. I suggest for the chord, it's a 1, 3, 5. And then 1, 2, 4 like they're showing. And then 1, 2, 4, 5. You recognize that as a 7th chord? It is. Not going to say what kind of 7th chord it is. It's just a 7th chord. Page 73, second line, last measure. You're here. You're holding the D down from before with the thumb, and then you come down with the 3rd finger. For the last note in the measure, I recommend 5th finger. Because you got to go down here for the next measure. And it's easier to reach this if you use 5th finger on the A. And then we're back to the same stuff we had on page 72 with the thumb on the C. Page 73, third line down, third measure. 3-5 for the first chord, 2-3-5 for the next one. And then when you go over to the next measure, the B's tied, but you lift up on the F sharp G. So the B's by itself for one beat. That's important. Last line, first measure is an F sharp, G sharp, B. Next measure, I would recommend a 3-4-5 on that chord because of what you just did before. Let's take the first two measures of the last line there on page 73. Here, and then here. Third finger on the F sharp. Just do a 3-4-5, then you're in position. I think that works out well. You may have to take a pencil and write all that down after you watch it about a dozen times, you know, I don't know. Now for the left hand, the biggest challenge I see is the rhythm. It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's the counting. The beginning. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You have to take a pencil and draw a small vertical line above the note on each beat. In other words, there would be a vertical line above the first chord because that's beat 1. But not above the quarter note because that comes on the end of 1. 1 and 2 and then on the 1, 2, 3, the fourth chord over, another vertical line because that's beat 3. Those two chords come on the beat. All the other chords come in between the beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and this rhythm is all over the place. If you can get this in the first measure, you've got it. But it's really, really, really important that you get it. And then you're just changing the chords. Pretty much. I mean, you got small differences like a half note here and there, but you'll figure that out, I'm sure. Look at the page 72. Second line, last measure. You're here in the left hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And see, that rhythm's different. Again, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then going on to the next measure, I recommend a 3-2-1 there. Because you're here, you can go here easily. So, and this is the same rhythm as you just did. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Then notice the C natural. They put it in parentheses and they gave you the natural. Again, they don't even have to give you the natural. They don't have to give you anything there. It is a C natural according to the rules because the C sharp in the first measure on the third line is only good for the measure. And it's no good for the next measure. It is a C natural. But it was nice of them to put in the natural song. Next measure. Here, pause, and then down. I recommend a thumb on the last note, on that A. Because that way you're closer to where you want to be. You can play the first chord in the next measure with 5-2. And then come to 5-1. Helps. So the last two measures of the third line would be this. Pause. So 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the rhythm does change a little bit from time to time, but study it carefully and you'll be fine, I think. Top of page 73, second measure. I like that fingering. So you're starting out with the measure before you had an F natural down here. Then I recommend a fourth finger on the A. First note in the second measure is an A, yeah. And then a 1-2, 1-2, and then a 2-2. I like that. That's good fingering. Jump down to, jump gently, but jump down to third line down, third measure. Left hand, it's rest and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Follow their fingering, it's a good one. And that'll work. The last note in the left hand at the bottom of page 73 as a fermata, I'm going to hold that one extra count. And that's it. And it's only held the last time, because those last two measures are repeated, so we'll play them twice. So the fermata only counts for the last time. This is a ballad, so you can take some freedoms here, some interpretive freedoms. Just don't violate what the music's telling you to do. They're telling you at the beginning there freely. I'm not sure what that means, but you can take it as you want to. Freely, kind of, you're setting the tone. And then you go down soft, soft, soft. This is just an introduction. And then the actual song starts up here. So maybe it would help you if you sang it to yourself to get an idea of what the story is. But it's like, how would you interpret it? Look at the third line down. Where after the first couple of measures, or the pickup to the third measure, you're here. Do I care? Pause. Yes, I dare, 'cause I'm stage struck. Whatever that is. Okay, so it's do I care? Pause. Yeah, okay, I care. You're building up here to the top of page 73. Continue to build up to here, and then all of a sudden it's slower. I don't know how much slower, just slower. And this is like a bridge between two sections. You've finished this to share my song, and it's like, okay, now we're kind of thinking. This is just a bridge. It gives us some music, background music, while we're thinking. And these two measures, and one measure, the measure is repeated. You're going to play it twice. And they say delicately and then go on. It's just, I'm not sure how you create a beautiful effect with it, but whatever you want to do, huh? 1, 2, then repeat it. And remember, this is still slower. And then stay slower in the last measure. Is it wrong? And then at the second measure, then take off on your regular speed again. It's all tempo. It's resume your tempo. Well, watch the rhythm here. It keeps switching around. So, takes us down to the third line. There's an accelerando there. Third measure means gradually start speeding up a little bit. I don't know how much. You'll have to decide, experiment. What do you feel it should be? So pick, starting on the second measure with the words I feel like, it's here. And then all of a sudden you're soft there on way. I'm on my way. I can feel the beat. I'm on my way. You have to experiment and kind of internalize this to get a feeling of how to interpret it. The point is, once you know the notes and the rhythms and the pedaling and all that, interpret it. Turn it into music. Do something with it. Don't just say, well, okay, I got all the notes. Let's go on. No, you're missing out on what music really is about. Oh, I did all that without the pedal. Now let's add the complexity of the pedal to this. Most of this is pedaled. But then we don't pedal certain passages when there's eighth notes and running up and down and things, because that would get it blurry. This is kind of a sweet piece. At the beginning, it's just overlapping pedal. So I push the notes down and then the pedal. And then an overlap, I'll push the notes down in the next measure and then lift the pedal and put it back down. Then when I start the piece going into the next line, I like a little break in the sound. It's like a new phrase. It's like the first line is like an introduction, and then when it starts the real piece, I'd like to have a little break. You don't have to. You can go do it this way from the last measure of the first line to the first measure of the second line. You can do it this way. Connect them. Or put a little break in the sound if you want. See, the idea with the break, it's for the right hand, not the left. So the last measure of the first line. But you're going to break the left here if you lift the pedal up. You'll have to decide which way do you like it. Do you want a little bit of silence before you go on, or do you want to connect them? It's a personal thing. Now starting with the second line there, the first measure's fine. But the second measure and every other measure in this piece that has the same pattern, might be different notes, but this pattern, I would pedal it every 2 beats, because the whole measure, that's too blurry for me. So I would do it this way. The second measure of the second line is here. And then this third measure, it's the whole measure. And then the 2 beats here. You get to the second measure of the third line, I would lift the pedal up when I play the first notes in that measure. You don't need the pedal here, and I don't want to blur this and this. I don't want that sound. So I lift the pedal up after I play those notes. So the first 2 measures of the third line. And I'll leave it up now till I get to the last measure. Pause. The last line again, every 2 beats. Then we're back going again. Etc. And I just keep pedaling it that way throughout this. Now on the third line down, you don't pedal the second measure here. You want these by themselves, and you give me a little break between the first and second beats there too. So the first, starting with the first measure, the third line there is here. I actually lift the pedal when I play the first note in the second measure. I just lift it up. And I'm not pedaling the first 2 beats of the last measure, the third line. I lift it up when I play the D, and I keep it up until after I play the third beat. So the last 2 measures of the third line is here. The second measure of the last line, no pedal. We want a different effect, and we do that by releasing the pedal. The first 2 measures of the last line is here. And then go on. play the B in the right hand the second time. So when I repeat these, the second time through, the right hand's done. It's not doing it. It's all left hand now. And then retard the second time and just hang on to the last note for a little bit. With a metronome, I'm going to do that one beat, but you know, when you're just doing it, you just hang on to it for a little bit. And that's sort of this piece. This is a really neat piece if you're into this kind of schmaltzy, folksy type stuff, because you know it's like a musical, a Broadway musical, or somebody on stage would be singing the solo. And you can imagine, use your imagination and have fun with it is what I'm saying. Don't just mechanically do this. I'd like to play it with you just to double check rhythms and notes as best we can. It's hard to check the notes when you're playing these chords. Maybe you can tell if you're playing the same notes I am, I don't know, but at least we can check the rhythm. So let's try this just the way it's written, except I can't slow down and speed up. We'll do that. And for the pause, I'm going to add one beat. I'm going to pause for one beat. 4/4 time, I'll give us 4 counts. Left hand starts it, and when the right hand comes in, it will be here, and the foot's on the pedal. I'm ready. Let's do this. 1, 2, and ready, and go, and. Pause. Now, I can interpret it one way, but I would really prefer you didn't copy me. I'd like you to come up with your own interpretation, but I'll give you an idea of how you might think about. It's not the only way to do it, it's just an idea.